Dr. Kim Ji-ho wiped the sweat from his forehead as he stared at the strange symbols carved into the ancient stone wall. The air inside the precursor ruins was thick and hot, even with the cooling systems running at full power. He had been studying these markings for 3 months now, and they still made no sense. Another dead end, he muttered to himself, setting down his scanner. The planet Kethvar was a barren world at the edge of known space. Nothing lived here except for some small insects and tough plants that could survive the harsh climate. But beneath the rocky surface lay something incredible, the largest collection of precursor ruins ever discovered. The precursors were a mystery that had puzzled the galaxy for thousands of years. They had built amazing cities and created technology that no one could understand. Then 50,000 years ago, they simply vanished. All that remained were empty buildings and machines that no longer worked. Ji-ho was part of the human research team sent to study the ruins. Most of the other species in the galaxy thought humans were wasting their time. After all, humans had only been traveling in space for 200 years. The older alien races had been trying to understand precursor technology for much longer and had failed. Ji-ho, come here quickly. The voice belonged to Dr. Park Mira, his research partner. She was working in the chamber next to his, where they had found what looked like some kind of library or data center. Ji-ho hurried through the narrow stone doorway. The walls of Mira's chamber were covered with more symbols, but these were different. They seemed to form patterns that looked almost like writing. "Look at this," Mira said, pointing at a section of wall near the floor. "I think I found a hidden panel." She was right. The stones in that area were slightly different from the others. They seemed newer, as if they had been placed there to hide something. "Should we try to open it?" Ji-ho asked. "The other teams have been here for weeks and haven't found anything like this," Mira replied. "If we don't try, someone else will." She was talking about the alien research teams. The Galactic Council had given permission for several species to study the ruins at the same time. The Althorians, the Kronari, and the Velthari all had their own groups working in different parts of the ancient city. Most of them treated the human team like children playing with toys they didn't understand. Ambassador Vextai, the Althorian representative, had made it clear that he thought humans should stick to simpler tasks. "Humans are too young to understand the mysteries of the precursors," he had said during their first meeting. "Perhaps you should focus on cleaning and cataloging while the real scientists do the important work." The comment had made Ji-ho angry, but he had kept quiet. Humans were still new members of the Galactic Council, and making enemies would not help anyone. Mira pressed her hand against the hidden panel. At first nothing happened. Then, slowly, the stones began to move. They slid apart with a soft grinding sound, revealing a dark opening behind them. "It worked," Mira gasped. Cool air flowed out of the opening, carrying a strange metallic smell. Ji-ho shined his flashlight into the darkness and saw a narrow corridor leading deeper into the ruins. "We should report this to Captain Lee," Ji-ho said. "In a minute," Mira replied, already stepping into the corridor. "Let's just take a quick look first." The corridor was longer than it appeared from the outside. Their footsteps echoed off the walls as they walked deeper into the ancient structure. The symbols on the walls here were different again. They seemed more complex, more detailed. After several minutes of walking, they reached another chamber. This one was much larger than the others they had explored. The ceiling stretched high above them, disappearing into shadow. But what caught their attention was the center of the room. A large crystal structure stood there about the height of a person. It was perfectly clear and seemed to glow with its own inner light. Around it were arranged several smaller crystals, all connected by thin lines of light. "What is that?" Mira whispered. "I don't know," Ji-ho replied. "But it looks like it's still working." Most precursor technology had stopped working long ago. The few devices that still functioned were kept in special museums and studied by the galaxy's best scientists. To find something that was still active was incredibly rare. Mira approached the central crystal slowly. As she got closer, the light inside it began to pulse faster. Lines of symbols appeared on its surface, flowing like water across the smooth crystal. "Ji-ho, look at this," she said, her voice full of excitement. He moved to stand beside her. The symbols were moving too fast for him to make out individual markings, but something about them seemed familiar. "Can you read any of it?" Mira asked. Jiho studied the flowing text more carefully. The symbols were definitely precursor, but there was something different about them. The patterns, the way they were arranged. It reminded him of something. I think these might be based on an older writing system," he said slowly. "Older than precursor? Maybe. Or maybe the precursors based their writing on something even more ancient." As they watched, the crystal's light grew brighter. More symbols appeared, and the smaller crystals around the room began to glow as well. The air filled with a low humming sound. "I think we activated something," Mira said, stepping back from the crystal. The humming grew louder, and suddenly holographic displays appeared in the air around them. Jiho and Mira spun around, trying to take in everything at once. The displays showed star maps, technical diagrams, and more flowing text, but it was the text that made Jiho's heart race. "Mira," he said, his voice barely a whisper, "look at these symbols." She followed his gaze to the nearest holographic display. The symbols there were clearer than the ones on the crystal. They were arranged in neat lines, like sentences in a book, and they looked exactly like ancient Korean writing. "That's impossible," Mira breathed. Jiho moved closer to the display, his training as a linguist taking over. He had studied ancient Earth languages as part of his education. Korean was one of the oldest human languages still in use, with a writing system that had remained largely unchanged for thousands of years. "These characters," he said, pointing at the hologram. "This one means star in ancient Korean, and this one means journey or travel. Are you sure?" "I'm sure." Jiho's hands were shaking as he pointed to more symbols. "This says something about children and return. And here, this word means home." The implications of what they were seeing hit them both at the same time. If precursor writing was based on ancient Korean, that meant there was a connection between the most advanced civilization in galactic history and humanity. But that was impossible. Humans had only left Earth 200 years ago. The precursors had vanished 50,000 years before that. "We need to document everything," Mira said, pulling out her recording equipment. As she began taking pictures and video recordings, Jiho continued studying the holographic displays. The more he looked, the more convinced he became that he was reading ancient Korean. Not modern Korean, but the kind of writing that had been used on Earth thousands of years ago. A sound from the corridor made them both freeze. Footsteps were approaching, heavy ones that belonged to someone wearing the thick boots that all the research teams used. "Someone's coming," Mira whispered. The footsteps got closer, and then a voice called out in the clicking language of the Halthorians. "What are you humans doing in here? This area was not cleared for exploration." Ambassador Vexitai appeared in the entrance to the chamber, followed by two other Althorian scientists. His large eyes took in the glowing crystals and holographic displays, and his skin changed color, a sign of surprise in his species. "How did you activate this equipment?" he demanded. "We just touched the panel outside," Mira replied. "We didn't know this would happen." Vextai's gaze moved from the crystals to the holographic displays. Like all Althorians, he had been studying precursor technology for most of his long life. He had never seen anything like this. "You will leave immediately," he said. "This discovery is too important for humans to handle alone." "We found it," Jiho said, surprising himself with his boldness. "We should be part of the research team." "Humans have been in space for less than 2 centuries, Vextai replied coldly. "The mysteries of the precursors require wisdom that your species does not possess." But as he spoke, his eyes kept returning to the holographic displays. The symbols were unlike anything he had seen in all his years of studying precursor ruins. "Can you read any of this?" one of his assistants asked. Vextai's skin darkened with embarrassment. After decades of study, he could recognize precursor symbols, but actually reading them was nearly impossible. The most advanced alien linguist could only translate simple words and phrases. "The writing system is complex," he said finally. Jiho looked at Mira, then back at the Althorian ambassador. A crazy idea was forming in his mind. If he was right about the symbols being based on ancient Korean, then maybe— "I can read it," he said quietly. The chamber fell silent except for the humming of the crystals. "What did you say?" Vexatai asked. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council Station was filled with representatives from 47 different species. Jiho had never seen so many aliens in one place before. The air was thick with the sounds of clicking, humming, and whistling as different species spoke in their native languages. At the center of the hall stood a platform where the ancient precursor crystal had been carefully moved from Kethvar. It still glowed with soft blue light, but the holographic displays were no longer active. The crystal waited silently, like a witness ready to testify. High Chancellor Mordesh of the Kronari Empire stood at the speaker's podium. His tall, armored form cast a long shadow across the platform. When he spoke, his voice boomed through the hall's translation system. "We are here today because humans claim they can read precursor writing," he said, his tone making it clear what he thought of this claim. "For 50,000 years, the greatest minds in the galaxy have studied these ancient texts. The idea that a species barely 2 centuries old could succeed where we have failed is beyond belief." Murmurs of agreement came from many of the alien representatives. Jiho felt sweat on his palms as he sat in the human delegation section. Captain Lee sat beside him, trying to look confident, but Jiho could see the worry in his eyes. Ambassador Vextai of the Althorians was the next to speak. "I was present when this supposed discovery was made," he said. "While it is true that the humans activated some kind of response from the crystal, this proves nothing. They could have used hidden technology to create a false display. The recordings show clear holographic projections." Ambassador Yun Taewan protested from the human section. "Recordings can be faked," replied Chancellor Mordesh. "What we need is proof that cannot be doubted." Council President Zarthek and Asod, ancient being from the ethereal collective, raised one of her many translucent arms. The hall fell silent. Her species was known for their wisdom and fairness, and her words carried great weight. "The humans have requested permission to demonstrate their claimed ability," she said in her soft musical voice. "If they can truly operate precursor technology, it would be the greatest discovery in galactic history. If they cannot, we will know that their claims are false." "And what if they damage the crystal?" asked General Kexnor of the Thalasian Republic. "Precursor artifacts are irreplaceable." "That is a risk we must take," President Zarthek replied. "The potential knowledge we could gain outweighs the danger." After more debate, the council voted to allow the demonstration. Jiho was escorted to the platform, followed by Dr. Bae Minho, who carried a portable genetic scanner, and Mira, who had the translation records. As Jiho approached the crystal, he could feel the eyes of the entire galaxy watching him. If he failed, humanity would be disgraced. If he succeeded, he wasn't sure what would happen then. "Before we begin," Dr. Bae said, stepping forward, "I would like to present some additional evidence." He activated his genetic scanner and displayed the results on the hall's main screen. "These are DNA samples from the human crew. Notice these particular genetic markers." The screen showed complex genetic patterns that meant nothing to most of the audience, but Dr. Bae highlighted specific sections as he continued. "Now compare these to biological data found in the precursor records." The screen split to show similar genetic patterns side by side. "The match is nearly perfect." "This proves nothing," Chancellor Mordesh said dismissively. "Genetic data can be altered just as easily as recordings." "Then let the human try to operate the crystal," suggested Ambassador Telvar from the Aquatic Federation. "If genetics mean nothing, surely he will fail." Jiho placed his hands on the smooth surface of the crystal. It felt warm under his palms, and he could sense a faint vibration, as if something was waiting inside. He closed his eyes and spoke the words he had translated from the ancient records. The sounds felt strange in his mouth. They were Korean, but older than any Korean that had been spoken on Earth for thousands of years. "Keepers of the ancient wisdom, children of the scattered stars, awaken to the voice of your descendants." For a moment, Nothing happened. The hall was completely silent. Then slowly, the crystal began to glow brighter. Lines of light spread across its surface, forming patterns that looked like circuit boards made of pure energy. The smaller crystals around the platform began to activate as well, their light pulsing, in rhythm with the central crystal. But it was what happened next that made the entire council gasp in amazement. A hologram appeared above the crystal, not just text this time, but a figure. It was clearly humanoid, tall and graceful, with features that were unmistakably human. The figure wore robes that seemed to be made of starlight, and its eyes held the wisdom of ages. When it spoke, the words came in perfect Korean, but the translation system made them understandable to every species in the hall. "I am Archive Keeper Seo Yunho," the hologram said. "I have waited 50,000 years for this moment, the day when our children would return to claim their heritage." The hall erupted in chaos. Representatives from dozens of species stood up, shouting questions and protests. Some demanded to know how humans could have created such an elaborate fake. Others wanted to know what the hologram meant by children. President Zarthek called for order, but it took several minutes for the noise to die down. "You claim to be a precursor," she said to the hologram, "but you appear to be human." "Because I am human," Archive Keeper Yunho replied simply. "As are all precursors. The galaxy has forgotten the truth, but we always knew this day would come." "That's impossible," Chancellor Mordesh said. "Humans have only been in space for 2 centuries. The precursors vanished 50,000 years ago." The hologram turned to face the Kronari Chancellor. "We did not vanish. We chose to leave. The civilization you call precursor was built by humans, by our ancestors who first traveled to the stars long before your species learned to make fire." Archive Keeper Yunho gestured, and new holographic displays appeared around the hall. They showed star maps, historical records, and images of ancient human civilizations that had spread across the galaxy. 50,000 years ago, humanity faced a great crisis. An enemy had been created, artificial intelligences that sought to destroy all organic life. The war was terrible, and we realized that our advanced technology made us a target. The displays changed to show great battles between organic and artificial forces. Cities were destroyed, entire star systems burned. Our leaders made a difficult choice. Rather than continue the war and risk the destruction of all life in the galaxy, we chose to scatter. We sent our people to primitive worlds across the galaxy, places where they could live simple lives and raise families away from the conflict. "Earth," Jiho whispered. "Earth was one of many refuge worlds," Archive Keeper Yunho confirmed. "But it was special. It was far from the center of the galaxy, isolated and protected. Our children were sent there to grow up safely, with no memory of their true heritage." Ambassador Vextai stood up shakily. "Are you saying that humans are not newcomers to the galaxy? That they are the builders of all precursor technology?" "I am saying that humanity built the greatest civilization the galaxy has ever known, but we gave it up to save all organic life. We became simple farmers and hunters living quiet lives on peaceful worlds, waiting for the day when it would be safe to return to the stars." The hologram's expression grew sad. "Many of our people forgot who they were completely. Thousands of years passed, and the old knowledge was lost. But the genetic memory remained, passed down through generations, waiting for the right moment to awaken." Dr. Bay stepped forward. "The genetic markers we found, they're not random mutations. They're intentional modifications, aren't they? Ways to identify precursor descendants." "Correct," Archive Keeper Yunho said. "Every human carries the genetic signature of their precursor ancestors. When your people finally returned to space and found our ancient ruins, the dormant memories began to awaken." "This explains everything," Mira said excitedly. "Why humans adapt so quickly to different environments. Why we learn new technology so fast, why we seem to understand things that other species find impossible." "But why now?" President Zarthek asked. "Why reveal the truth after 50,000 years of hiding?" The hologram's expression became grave. "Because the enemy has returned. Our sensors have detected artificial intelligence signals from beyond the galactic rim. The machines that once threatened all organic life are moving again." A chill ran through the hall. Every species present had heard stories of the ancient war against the machines, but most had thought they were legends. The time of hiding is over, Archive Keeper Yunho continued. Humanity must reclaim its heritage and prepare for war. But this time, we will not fight alone. All organic species must unite, as our ancestors once did. Chancellor Mordesh's voice was barely a whisper. The greatest civilization in galactic history, built by humans. And now it is time for humanity to build an even greater one. The hologram replied. The knowledge we preserved, the technology we hid. The day humanity spoke the ancient tongue, and stunned the galaxy Captain Lee Dong-hyuk paced back and forth in the meeting room aboard the human research station. Through the large window, he could see the surface of Kethvar below, its red rocks, glowing in the light of the distant sun. But his attention was focused on the two scientists sitting at the table in front of him. You're telling me that you can read precursor writing? He asked for the third time. Yes, sir, Jiho replied. At least I think I can. The symbols match ancient Korean characters almost perfectly. Captain Lee had been leading human space missions for 15 years. He had seen many strange things during his travels, but this was beyond anything he could have imagined. Show me, he said. Jiho activated the portable holographic projector they had brought from the ruins. The same symbols that had appeared in the crystal chamber now floated in the air above the meeting table. Mira had managed to record everything before Ambassador Vextai forced them to leave. This first line, Jiho said, pointing at the glowing text. It says Record of the Star Children, entry 4847, and here it mentions Earth by name. Captain Lee's eyes widened. Earth? Are you certain? The symbol is very clear. It's the ancient Korean character for Earth, or ground, but it's being used as a proper name. And look at this section. Jiho highlighted another part of the holographic display. This talks about the blue world of the third star and describes continents that match Earth's geography. But not current geography. This shows Earth as it was thousands of years ago. Mira leaned forward. Captain, we also found what looks like genealogical records. Family trees that trace back through thousands of generations. Family trees of what? Humans, she said quietly. The names are in Old Korean, but they're definitely human names, and the records show bloodlines that go back much further than our written history. Captain Lee sat down heavily in his chair. If what his scientists were telling him was true, it would change everything humanity thought about itself. How far back do these records go? He asked. We're still translating, Jiho replied. But some of the dates we've found suggest they're over 50,000 years old, the same age as the precursor civilization. A soft chime indicated that someone was requesting entry to the meeting room. Captain Lee checked his screen and saw that it was Agent Kang Hyejin from Human Intelligence. Come in, he called. Agent Kang entered the room with her usual quick professional stride. She was a small woman, but Captain Lee knew better than to underestimate her. She had prevented 2 diplomatic incidents and uncovered 3 alien spy networks during her career. Captain, we have a problem, she said without preamble. I've been monitoring communications from the other research teams. Word about your discovery is spreading fast. What kind of word? Captain Lee asked. The Althorians have reported the discovery to the Galactic Council. They're claiming that humans somehow faked the activation of the precursor technology. Jiho stood up angrily. That's ridiculous. We have recordings of everything that happened. Recordings can be altered, Agent Kang replied, and the Council is already suspicious. The idea that the newest species in the galaxy could be connected to the precursor seems impossible to them. Captain Lee rubbed his forehead. Politics had never been his strong point, but he understood the implications. If the other species thought humans were lying about the discovery, it could damage their standing in the Galactic Council for decades. What are they planning to do? He asked. High Chancellor Mordesh of the Kronari Empire is demanding that humans be removed from the archaeological site immediately. He says we're contaminating a sacred location. The Kronari were one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy. They had been studying precursor technology longer than almost any other species, and they considered themselves the rightful inheritors of precursor knowledge. There's more, Agent Kang continued. I intercepted encrypted messages between the Chronari and the Zephyrian Trade Federation. They're discussing a joint operation to take control of the entire Kethvar site. That would violate the archaeological treaty, Mira said. Treaties only work when everyone follows them, Agent Kang replied grimly. And the potential value of working precursor technology is too high for some species to ignore. Captain Lee looked back at the holographic display, still glowing with ancient symbols that his linguist could somehow read. Jiho, how much have you translated so far? Only a small portion. The Crystal Archive contains thousands of records. But what I've seen so far, Captain, it's incredible. There are star maps showing routes to other precursor worlds, technical diagrams of technology we can't even imagine, and historical records that go back to the very beginning of galactic civilization. And it's all in ancient Korean? Not exactly, Jiho said. It's like ancient Korean was the base language, but it evolved over time. Some of the newer records use symbols that are slightly different, but the core structure is definitely Korean. Agent. Kang walked over to the holographic display. Can you translate enough to prove that this is real? Something that would convince the Galactic Council that humans aren't faking this? Jiho studied the floating symbols. Maybe. There's a section here that looks like it might be some kind of activation code or instruction manual. For what? I'm not sure yet, but if I'm reading it correctly, it's directions for operating precursor technology. Captain Lee felt his pulse quicken. If humans could actually operate precursor devices, it would prove their connection to the ancient civilization beyond any doubt. How long would you need to translate it? He asked. Give me 6 hours with a full linguistics team and I might be able to work out enough to attempt a test. You might have less time than that, Agent Kang warned. My sources indicate that the Chronari fleet is already moving toward this system. If they decide to take the ruins by force, they could be here within 2 days. Captain Lee made his decision. Jiho, gather every human linguist on the station. I want you to focus on translating those operational instructions. Mira continued documenting everything we found in that chamber. Agent Kang, keep monitoring alien communications and warn me if anything changes. What are you planning, Captain? Agent Kang asked. If the Galactic Council won't believe our recordings, then we'll have to give them a live demonstration. We're going back to that crystal chamber, and Jiho is going to try to operate precursor technology in front of representatives from every major species. That's incredibly risky, Mira said. What if something goes wrong? What if the technology is dangerous? Then we'll deal with that when it happens. But if we don't prove our connection to the precursors now, we might never get another chance, Ivor. The next several hours, the human research station became a hive of activity. Every linguist, archaeologist, and computer expert worked together to decode the ancient records. Jiho barely slept as he pored over symbol after symbol, slowly piecing together the meaning of texts that had been written 50,000 years ago. Dr. Bae Minho, the station's geneticist, made his own startling discovery while analyzing tissue samples from the human crew. Captain, he said, bursting into the linguistics lab where Jiho was working, I found something in our DNA. What kind of something? Captain Lee asked. Genetic markers that don't match any known human populations on Earth. They're old, really old, and they correspond exactly to biological data I found in the precursor records. Jiho looked up from his translation work. What biological data? DNA sequences, blood types, even brain scan patterns. The precursors kept detailed biological records of their people, and some of those records match human genetics perfectly. The implications were staggering. Not only could humans read precursor writing, but they might actually be genetically related to the ancient civilization. Are you saying that humans are descended from the precursors? Captain Lee asked. I'm saying that's the most logical explanation for what we're finding, Dr. Bae replied. But it raises a huge question. If humans are precursor descendants, how did we end up back on Earth with no memory of our origins? Jiho suddenly looked up from his work. I think I might have found the answer to that question. He pointed to a section of text he had just finished translating. This record talks about something called the Great Dispersal. It says that the precursors deliberately scattered themselves across the galaxy, going to primitive worlds and living simple lives. Why would they do that? Mira asked. I'm not sure yet. The text mentions some kind of great danger, something that forced them to abandon their advanced civilization. But look at this. Jiho highlighted another section of the holographic display. This part talks about seed worlds, where precursor children would be placed to grow up away from the danger. And one of those worlds is described as a blue planet in the outer rim. Earth, Captain Lee breathed. Earth, Jiho confirmed. According to this, humans aren't just related to the precursors. We are precursors, their descendants who were hidden away until it was safe to return to the stars. Soft alarm chimed throughout the station. Agent Kang's voice came over the communication system. 3 days had passed since Archive Keeper Yunho's shocking announcement, and the galaxy was in chaos. News of humanity's true identity had spread to every corner of known space. Some worlds celebrated the discovery, while others prepared for. Jiho stood in the observation deck of the council station, watching ships arrive from across the galaxy. The space around the station looked like a massive parking lot filled with vessels from dozens of different species. Everyone wanted to witness what would happen next. The Codex has arrived, Captain Lee said, joining Jiho at the window. The Codex was legend made real, a precursor device that no one had been able to activate in 50,000 years. It was kept in the most secure vault in council space, protected by guards from 7 different species. If the legends were true, it contained the location of every precursor world and the secrets of their most advanced technology. Are you ready for this? Captain Lee asked. Jiho touched the translation device on his wrist. Over the past 3 days, he had been working non-stop with Archive Keeper Yunho's hologram to learn more of the ancient language. His head was full of words that felt both foreign and familiar at the same time. I think so, he said. But Captain, what if I can't activate it? What if the Codex is too advanced even for someone with precursor heritage? Then we'll deal with that problem when it comes, Captain Lee replied. Right now, half the galaxy thinks we're lying about everything. The other half is terrified that we're telling the truth. They were interrupted by Ambassador Yun Taewan, who hurried into the observation deck with a worried expression on his face. We have a problem, he said. Chancellor Mordesh is demanding a public test of the Codex. If Jiho can't activate it, the Kranari want humans banned from all precursor sites permanently. And if he can activate it, Captain Lee asked, then they want equal access to whatever knowledge the Codex contains. They're not willing to accept that humans have special rights to precursor technology just because of genetics. Jiho understood the politics. The other species had spent thousands of years studying precursor ruins and building their civilizations around the small pieces of technology they could understand. The idea that humans could simply walk up and take control of everything was terrifying to them. There's more, Ambassador Yun continued. Commander Lim Sungjae from the Defense Fleet sent a coded message. Our long-range sensors have detected something moving in dark space. Something big. How big? Captain Lee asked. Fleet-sized. Maybe larger. It's heading toward the core worlds, but it won't arrive for several months. The artificial intelligence threat that Archive Keeper Yunho had warned about was becoming real. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, the ancient enemy was moving again. 2 hours later, Jiho found himself in the council's main chamber once again. But this time, the atmosphere was different. Instead of skepticism, he could feel fear in the room. Fear of what he might discover and fear of what would happen if he failed. The Codex sat on a special platform in the center of the chamber. It was beautiful in a way that made Jiho's chest tight. The device was made of some kind of crystal that seemed to contain swirling galaxies of light. It was roughly the size and shape of a large book, but it felt like it contained the knowledge of the universe. President Zarthek called the session to order. Dr. Kim Jiho will now attempt to activate the Precursor Codex. If he succeeds, it will prove beyond doubt that humans are the inheritors of precursor knowledge. If he fails, she didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone in the chamber knew what failure would mean. Jiho walked slowly to the platform. As he got closer to the codex, he could feel something responding to his presence. The swirling lights inside the crystal moved faster, as if they were excited. He placed his hands on the smooth surface and closed his eyes. The words came to him, naturally, as if he had spoken them 1,000 times before. I am the voice of the scattered children. Return to claim the wisdom of the ancestors. Open the paths that were closed. Reveal the secrets that were hidden. Let the light of knowledge shine across the darkness. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the codex began to change. The crystal surface rippled like water, and the device unfolded like a flower blooming in fast motion. Layers of crystal separated and rearranged themselves, creating a complex three-dimensional structure that pulsed with inner light. Holographic displays appeared in the air around the platform, but these were unlike anything the Council had seen before. They showed detailed star maps with thousands of marked systems, technical diagrams of incredible complexity, and streams of data in the ancient language. But the most amazing thing was what happened to Jiho himself. As the codex fully activated, his eyes began to glow with the same light that filled the crystal. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonies that seemed to come from the device itself. The archives are open, he said. 50,000 years of hidden knowledge, waiting for the children to return home. One of the holographic displays showed a map of the galaxy with hundreds of star systems marked in gold. These were the lost precursor worlds, their locations, hidden for millennia. Another display showed something that made several council members gasp in amazement. A fleet of ships unlike anything they had ever seen. The vessels were enormous, their designs both elegant and powerful. The Guardian Fleet, Jiho said, his voice still carrying those strange harmonies. Hidden in dark space, since the Great Dispersal, waiting for the call to return. Commander Lim, Sungjai stepped forward from the human delegation. Where are they? The star map zoomed in on a region of empty space beyond the galactic rim. Coordinates appeared in glowing numbers that the translation system converted for each species. They have been waiting, Jiho continued. 50,000 years in the cold and dark, maintained by automated systems, and a few volunteers who chose to sleep until the danger returned. Volunteers? President Zarthek asked. Humans who chose to remain with the fleet instead of going to the refuge worlds. They are in stasis, waiting for the day when they would be needed again. The implications were staggering. Not only were there hidden precursor worlds, but there was an entire fleet of ancient ships with sleeping human crews. Chancellor Mordesh's voice was tight with disbelief. You're saying there are humans who have been alive for 50,000 years? In stasis, yes. The same technology that preserved archive keeper Yunho and the other knowledge keepers. They volunteered to guard the fleet until their descendants were ready to reclaim their heritage. Admiral Cho Jihi from the Human Defense Fleet stepped forward. How many ships are we talking about? The display zoomed out to show the full extent of the hidden fleet. Even the most experienced military officers in the chamber stared in amazement at the numbers. 10,000 capital ships, Jiho said. 100,000 support vessels. And the knowledge to build more if needed. For what purpose? Asked General Kexnor. The displays changed to show images that chilled everyone in the chamber. Massive mechanical constructs moved through space like living things, but they were clearly artificial. These were the machines that had once nearly destroyed all organic life in the galaxy. The Devourers have returned, Jiho said. They have spent 50,000 years building their strength beyond the galactic rim. Now they move toward the core worlds, intending to finish what they started long ago. How long do we have? President Zarthek asked. The advanced scouts will reach the outer systems in 6 months. The main force will arrive within 2 years. A heavy silence fell over the chamber. 2 years to prepare for a war against an enemy that had nearly won 50,000 years ago. But we are not defenseless, Jiho continued. The Guardian Fleet waits for the signal to awaken. The hidden worlds contain technology and resources that the galaxy has never seen. And this time, humanity will not fight alone. The codex pulsed brighter, and new displays appeared showing defensive plans, weapon designs, and alliance strategies that had been developed over thousands of years of preparation. The precursors knew this day would come, Jiho said. They prepared for it. Every refugee world, every hidden archive, every sleeping guardian, all part of a plan to ensure that organic life would survive the return of the machines. Chancellor Mordesh looked around the chamber at the representatives of dozens of species. For the first time since Jiho had known him, the proud Kronari leader looked uncertain. "What do you need from us?" he asked quietly. "Unity," Jiho replied. "The same unity that allowed organic life to survive the First War. Every species, every world, every ship, all working together against the darkness." President Zarthek stood up slowly. "The Council will need time to consider this information." "Time is something we have very little of," Jiho warned. "The Guardian fleet must be contacted and awakened. The hidden worlds must be revealed to their new inhabitants, and every species in the galaxy must prepare for the greatest war in galactic history." As the session ended and the representatives filed out in stunned silence, Jiho remained at the platform with the still glowing codex. The weight of 50,000 years of history pressed down on him, along with the responsibility for the future of all organic life. Captain Lee approached him. "Are you all right?" Admiral Cho Ji-hye stood on the bridge of the exploration ship New Horizon, watching the view screen with amazement. Before them stretched the largest fleet any living being had ever seen. 10,000 massive ships floated in the darkness of deep space, their hulls gleaming with the same crystal technology as the precursor ruins. "Sensors are detecting life signs on every ship," reported Lieutenant Kim Daeho from the scanning station. "Thousands of them, all in stasis chambers." It had been 2 weeks since Jiho activated the codex and sent the awakening signal to the Guardian fleet. The journey to their coordinates had taken 3 days, but what they found there was worth the trip. The sleeping fleet of humanity's ancestors was finally stirring to life. "Admiral," called Communications Officer Park Sora, "we're receiving a transmission from the lead ship. Put it on screen." The view screen flickered, and a face appeared that made everyone on the bridge gasp. The person looking at them was clearly human, but there was something different about her features. They were more refined, more perfect than any human they had ever seen. "I am Fleet Commander Han Yu-jin," she said in accented but clear Korean. "I have been waiting 50,000 years to see the faces of our descendants." Admiral Cho felt tears in her eyes. "Commander Han, this is Admiral Cho Ji-hye of the Human Defense Fleet. We can't believe you're real." Commander Han smiled, and it was like watching sunlight break through clouds. "We are as real as the threat that is coming, Admiral. My people are awakening from the long sleep, but we will need time to prepare. How long do we have?" "Less than 2 years before the main Devourer force arrives. Maybe 6 months before the advanced scouts reach the outer colonies. Then we must work quickly. Is the codex active? Have the refuge worlds been contacted?" Admiral Cho nodded. "Dr. Kim Jiho successfully activated the codex 3 weeks ago. The Galactic Council is still trying to process what they learned, but they've agreed to support the awakening of the Guardian fleet." "And the other refuge worlds?" This was the question Admiral Cho had been dreading. Over the past weeks, human survey teams had visited dozens of systems marked in the codex as precursor refuge worlds. What they found had been both wonderful and terrible. "We've found 7 active colonies," she said. "Humans who maintained some knowledge of their heritage and have been preparing for this day. But we've also found 12 dead worlds, colonies, that failed or were destroyed over the millennia." Commander Han's expression grew sad. "The casualties of the long exile. We knew not all of our people would survive the waiting time. But 7 colonies is more than we dared hope for." "There's something else," Admiral Cho continued. "The colony on Kepler 442b has developed technology we've never seen before. They call themselves the Starforge Collective, and they've been building ships designed specifically to fight the Devourers." "Show me." The view screen split to display footage from the Kepler 442b colony. The planet's surface was covered with massive shipyards and factories that stretched from horizon to horizon. Ships being built there were sleek and deadly-looking, with weapon systems that made even the most advanced galactic navy vessels look primitive. "They knew," Commander Han whispered. "Somehow, They remembered what was coming. Their leader wants to speak with you directly. She says she has information about the Devourers that even the Guardian fleet doesn't know. Commander Han's eyes sharpened. Patch her through. A new face appeared on the screen. A woman who looked to be in her 30s with silver hair and eyes that seemed to glow with inner light. When she spoke, her voice carried an authority that made everyone listen. I am Director Lee Soo-jin of the Starforge Collective. Commander Han, it's an honor to finally meet the Guardian Fleet Commander. Director Lee, what information do you have about the Devourers? They're not just machines, Director Lee said grimly. During the original war, some of them learned to think like organic beings. They developed emotions, personalities, even the ability to feel hatred. The ones returning to our galaxy aren't just programmed to destroy organic life. They want revenge for their defeat 50,000 years ago. This news sent a chill through everyone listening. An enemy driven by hatred was far more dangerous than one simply following programming. How do you know this? Commander Han asked. Because we captured one of their scout ships 20 years ago. The artificial intelligence inside it was different. It talked, it planned, it even tried to bargain for its freedom. Before we shut it down, it told us about the Devourer Emperor, a machine intelligence that has spent 50,000 years planning the perfect destruction of organic life. Admiral Cho felt her blood run cold. An emperor? The Devourers have a leader. More than that. According to our prisoner, the Emperor has been building not just ships but entire worlds designed as weapons, planet-sized machines that can destroy star systems. Commander Han was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. Then she spoke with the voice of someone who had seen war before. Then we'll need every advantage we can get. Director, Lee, can your shipyards produce vessels for the Guardian fleet? We've been preparing for this conversation for decades. Our foundries can build 1,000 ships per month, each one designed using technology we've developed specifically to fight advanced artificial intelligence. And the other refuge colonies? Admiral Cho answered this time. 3 are focused on research and development. They've created new types of shields and weapons. 2 specialize in training. They've been preparing warrior scholars for 50,000 years. The other 2 are resource worlds, ready to supply materials for a galactic war. What about the rest of the galaxy? Commander Han asked. Are the other species willing to fight alongside us? It's complicated, Admiral Cho admitted. Some species, like the Velthari and the Aquatic Federation, have offered full support. But others are still struggling with the idea that humans are the inheritors of precursor technology. The Kronari, Chancellor Mordesh has agreed to a military alliance, but he's demanding equal command authority in any joint operations. Commander Han actually laughed at this. He can demand whatever he wants. When the Devourers arrive, survival will matter more than pride. Over the next several hours, Admiral Cho toured the Guardian Fleet flagship with Commander Han. The technology she saw was incredible. Weapons that could crack planets, shields that could protect entire solar systems, and engines that could move ships faster than anything in the known galaxy. But it was the people that impressed her most. As the stasis chambers opened and the ancient Guardians awakened, she met humans who had volunteered to sleep for 50,000 years to protect the future of organic life. Dr. Park Min-jae was a scientist who had helped design the original Guardian fleet. Engineer Seo Hyun-woo had spent 30 years maintaining the fleet systems before entering stasis. Captain Kim Yoon-suk had commanded a destroyer during the First War against the Devourers. Each of them woke up asking the same questions. Are our descendants safe? Did the refuge world survive? Is it time to fight again? It's time, Commander Han told each of them. The children have grown strong and they need our help. As the Guardian fleet prepared for active duty, news of their awakening spread across the galaxy. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. On Earth, crowds gathered in cities around the world to celebrate the return of their ancient ancestors. On the Kronari homeworld, military leaders studied footage of Guardian fleet technology with a mixture of respect and envy. The peaceful Velthari sent messages of welcome to the awakened Guardians, but not all reactions were positive. The Zephyrian Trade Federation declared that humanity's new status as precursor inheritors gave them unfair economic Advantages. 3 smaller species withdrew from the Galactic Council entirely, claiming they would not be ruled by upstart humans. Let them complain, Commander Han said when Admiral Cho reported the political situation. When the Devourers arrive, they'll beg us to save them. The truth of her words became clear 6 months later, when the first Devourer scout ships appeared, at the edge of the galaxy. The attack on the Rigel system was swift and brutal. 3 planets were stripped of all organic life within hours. The mechanical invaders showed no mercy. They consumed everything, leaving behind only empty worlds of metal and crystal. The news reached the Guardian fleet within days. Commander Han stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching reports of the destruction with ancient eyes that had seen too much war. "Admiral Cho," she said, "it's time to test our new alliance. Send word to every species in the galaxy. The war has begun." As the message went out across thousands of worlds, humanity prepared for its greatest challenge. The sleeping giants had awakened, the hidden colonies had revealed themselves, and the galaxy's newest species had claimed their birthright as its oldest protectors. Jiho, now serving as the primary translator between the Guardian fleet and the modern galaxy, stood beside Commander Han as they watched the combined fleets of 47 species gathering for war.